Clint, anything before I start? Cool. Well, I get to get everybody at least usually go around the circle and everybody introduce themselves, but you guys already got that covered. You guys got it. Cool. And I'll introduce myself. But okay. So kind of my background. I haven't got to know you guys. I've gotten to know Nathan pretty well over the last couple of years, but foundationally, I started with Shell. So I grew up in Sheridan, Wyoming. I graduated in petroleum engineering in 2012 from UW and took a job with Shell in Houston right out of school. So I worked for Shell for about almost 12 years until last October, and then I left to do real estate full time. So, but it was a great way for me to start to build up my portfolio. My first real company was Gregersen Properties. That was my LLC that held all my holding. It was basically my holding company. It still is today. That's where I bought all my rental properties. But initially, I was just buying rental properties. I bought the first one in 2010 when I was going to school. My dad actually co-signed in Laramie with me. And then I didn't buy another one until 2015. But basically, what I did is I took the equity from that house and we'd fixed it up and I refinanced it, pulled out $50K and bought my second one in Laramie. And that was just like a normal house right by campus. It's crazy. It was rented for $730 a month right by campus. And it had this unfinished basement. I finished off the basement. It had its own access. By the time we were done, it rented for $2,600 a month. And once I did that, I'm like, all right, this is where it's at, right? So probably like you guys, that's kind of when I really started to get the bug. So about 3 years ago, as the market started to heat up, I was no longer able to find deals off market or on market. So that's when I developed Wyohouses. So that's our direct to seller marketing part of our company. So we go direct to seller, and I'll talk a lot about that today, but ultimately that's where we'll do all from our postcards to texting to cold calling to Facebook ads, Google ads, all that. Probably a lot of stuff, same stuff you guys do, Jordan. But we cover the whole state of Wyoming, which I'll show you in a second. We do all of Wyoming, and then we're doing Billings, Montana. And the reason we're doing Billings is I actually did my undergrad in Billings, and my wife's from there. So we've done a lot of novations, and actually we've only done novations in Billings. Yeah, we haven't actually closed on something that we kept or flipped or held as a rental. And I flipped a house that I lived in Billings a while ago. And then the last piece is Revive. So that's the logo of my shirt. This is our newest company, which I was tired of dealing with the headaches of contractors and subcontractors. Well, we still have subs, but we basically just invested in having our own construction company. So I've got a GC in Casper, which I'm really excited. We just hired him. I've got one in Sheridan who's been with me for about a year, and got one in Laramie. And I had one in Laramie for about last 18 months. I got rid of the last guy. It didn't work out. He went and started his own construction company, which was awesome. But I got a new guy in who's even stronger. And that's actually why we were in Casper this week. So we call it base camp. We get all the guys together, kind of do a bunch of strategy sessions. So that's why we were in Casper this week. So we had those guys together, and we literally just left from here and came down here. We were down at the Ramkota. So that's me in a nutshell. That's kind of how we've grown to where the biggest thing now, at times I love it. At times it's rough because there's so much capital going out from these different companies, but I love the synergy from being able to go direct to seller to being able to fix and flip and control the construction process. And that's the other thing is we're doing now, we're retail work. That's a big initiative to where we want to be able to be a contractor for houses we don't own, right? And the last thing is it all feeds into Gregersen Properties, which is our holding company. We do property management in-house. I'm not a broker, so I can't manage other people's property, but we manage all of our stuff. So that's it in a nutshell. So today we're going to cover sub 2, the 3 pieces there's a lot to creative finance, but we're going to go into sub 2, seller finance, and novations. And then I put a little map up here of Wyoming just illustrating that, I want to show you we've done these creative finance deals in Cheyenne. We've done them in Laramie. We're doing one in Rollins right now. We're closing on one in Rock Springs on Monday. I have a seller finance. It was basically a sub 2 in Green River that I assumed. Also another sub 2 I did in Gillette, where these ones I just assumed loans where these people really had no equity, but like the one in Green River, I assumed like a $90,000 loan on a 2-bed, 1-bath. And so it's a no-brainer. It's like it's actually like $550 a month payment. And I turn around and rent it for $1,000 a month. Same thing in Gillette. I assumed a mortgage where, again, lady only owed about $120 in Gillette, and it was like a townhouse, and it's renting for like $1,200 a month. So those have been I love those ones. I wish I could find more of them, but I just want to kind of show you, we're doing a flip now in Cody, which Nathan's helping us with. We're actually got a couple things in Powell. I've never touched anything in Jackson, but we did a flip in Pinedale. We've got a bunch of, actually several different deals in Riverton and Lander. But our core markets are Laramie, where we actually do a lot of marketing, is Laramie, Cheyenne, Casper, Sheridan, and Billings. Those are our kind of core markets where we've got like people, boots on the ground, holding rental properties, and we actually invest a lot of money in in Wyohouses does a lot of marketing in those areas. But granted, like our Facebook, we still just get leads from across the state. That's why I'll get random leads in Cody and Powell, and thankful we got Nathan who'll help us chase some of those down, because I don't know everything about the ins and outs of those markets. And honestly, the reason why we're able to cover the whole state is relationships like we have with Nathan, right? Because we have different agents in different places, and I've really loved that strategy of having not being a broker, right? I'm not an agent or a broker. I like partnering and knowing these guys that know their different markets, and it's been a kind of a good relationship with the agents, because they're able to list our flips. They also, a lot of the guys are like Nathan too, and they're flippers or they're investors themselves, and they get to say, hey, well, if Nathan likes one of our deals, and he's going to see it first, right? So that's the other cool thing. Okay, so let's talk about seller finance first. So we're going to do 3 sections, right? So seller finance. So when I'm defining seller finance, I'm talking about this typically works good for a seller who has a house free and clear, right? I'll talk to a little bit later on, if they're not free and clear, you could still do seller finance. And that is actually going to fall more under contract for deed. To me, contract for deed is more of a strategy of doing seller finance, and it works great in Wyoming. And a lot of people are familiar. It'll scare, as you've probably seen, it scares a lot of people when you bring it up, but it's also a very legitimate way to do this. Benefits, right? So avoiding the big sell we have when we're talking to seller is avoiding capital gains, right? If they bought the house for way less than what they currently owe, if they bought the house for $100,000 20 years ago, and now it's worth $300,000, they're about to take a big capital gain hit, right? So that's our thing is, hey, let's kick that down the road, or let's at least spread it out. The other thing is like seller gets more money over time, right? If we set it up with interest, they're actually going to make more money over time. So if you obviously pitch that correctly, that could be a big driver for the seller. Faster closing. The nice thing is there's no lender involved in this, so we could close quick. It's a lot easier closing process. Also a lot cheaper, no appraisals, all that. Documents. So typically what ours look like is a purchase and sale agreement. Obviously that's the first step. From there, we will put in like an indemnification, basically that the buyer takes full responsibility or liability of the loan. So that's one piece of documentation we do. And that's if I'm talking to a seller like, well, what if you don't pay my loan? Well, we're going to have a notarized document saying that I'm responsible for that. And that more so applies when it's a sub 2, but we always try to put that in our contracts. Another thing is a third party authorization. You guys heard of that, or the need for that? So that is if something, that's so when you want to go sell this house or refinance it or contact the lender, you get this third party authorization filled out, and that allows you to go contact the lender and get whatever you need. The other thing is setting up a new insurance policy. We always try to make sure we do that lists us as the insured, right? And then the other thing is, especially if you're doing contract for deed, is using a third party escrow company. We use Marquee Escrow out of Cheyenne. They'll do the whole state. And that's a really good one if you got a seller all sellers are different. I have some sellers that are just like, hey, we'll just give you our login and you just switch to auto pay, right? And because we don't want to notify the bank. But there's also situations where, hey, let's actually go through a third party, and that's really best practice. Just costs a little bit more legwork. But anyway, that's a great way to do the third part, to go through a third party, right? And it's actually not that bad. It's pretty affordable. Okay, so I want to show you a couple of case studies we've done of seller finance. And I think you guys are going to some of these you guys are probably familiar with. We'll dive a lot deeper into Novations and sub 2, which I know you guys will love too. But real quick, the seller finance case studies. This first one, this is in Laramie, right? So this was kind of a blend where this guy, he had a loan on the property. We actually did contract for deed and the third party escrow company on this. So what we did here is this house I got for $170,000. I put $10,000 down, and then we basically assumed his loan. I basically stacked it, right? He owed $96,000. So I assumed his mortgage, and then on his equity, so whatever 160 minus 90 is, I make a payment on his equity, and I negotiated like 5%, right? So every month I make 2 payments at once. One goes to pay his mortgage, one goes to pay him for his equity, and that's how I set up this one. And it's still, my payment all in is around $1,000. This house is renting for $1,700, so it's a great way, and I put down $10,000. So that's a really cool one, plus great property in Laramie. This one I just did in Rock Springs. So I set up this one in the fact that this guy had to sell his house, and it needed renovations. So I'm bummed. Artha came here last summer. I was hoping Nathan would get to meet her, but anyway, Artha is helping us with this deal, and Artha actually brought me this deal. She's like, Casey, this guy can't sell his house. It won't get financing. So I went in. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to give you a cash offer, the cash offer wasn't going to work, right? But the way we made this deal work, and it's similar to what we're doing on Musser Road, is we're going to close the deal and basically assume his loan. And then what I'm doing with this guy is when we sell the house, I'm going to pay him a little bit more, right? We're basically partnering on it, right? But I'm closing. Anytime I'm going to do major renovations, I want to close the deal, right? I don't want to do a novation, because a novation is I'm not on title, right? So on this one, we're closing on Tuesday, actually Monday. But I formally closed on it. I assumed his loan. I'm making his payments now. And then when we go sell the property, we've set up just kind of like almost a profit share, where if I sell it for X, he gets X%, right? And I wanted to have a way to get him more out of the house and him kind of sharing the risk with me. Anyway, I kind of put so a lot of these numbers are based on, I brought in a private money lender. So I actually used his loan, and on this one, I partnered with it was with my 50-50 partner, and it took about $75,000 to do the deal. Anyway, but yeah, so those are a couple case studies. We'll talk sub 2 now, or I guess any questions on seller finance?
Yeah, just when you talk about the third-party authorization, so you're getting authorization to communicate with the lender, but if you do that, doesn't that potentially trigger them to what's going on?
Exactly. So we are careful to use it, I would say. We try to set up everything that we need to prior to closing, and so we just really don't notify the lender. But again, you'll hear Pace Morby talk about it. Pace has done thousands and thousands, I forget the number is, thousands of deals that are sub 2, right? And he's had, I think, 3 to 5 ever called. And every time they've been called, he's found a way to mitigate it and get out of it, right? But yeah, good point. I'm only going to use it when I'm ready to refinance or sell the property, right? And at that point, if they want to call it due, I'm paying them off. Yeah. Good question. Okay, sub 2. So the way sub 2 works is you're going to assume the current owner's mortgage, right? So you're going to take over their payments, start making payments. I gave a couple examples already. And then the other thing I put optional, sometimes you'll find a deal where this works, the straightforward way this works is if they've got no equity, but they owe, like the one I mentioned I just put one under contract in Douglas. The house is probably worth $170. He owes $150. Is that right? He owns right around $150, right? So by the time he pays an agent, there's very little equity, right? It's hard for him. So what I said is hey, why don't I give you, we agreed to $7,500. I'm like, I'll give you $7,500. Let me assume your loan. And now I just take over his payments, right? But he doesn't have a whole lot of equity. In the situations where they have equity, we actually do what's called, or Pace calls it, it's like a hybrid, right? So I'm going to it's like that last example I showed you guys in Laramie, right? Where I'm making a payment on the note. I'm making his mortgage payment, and then I'm also paying him on his equity, right? So the benefits, fast closing, right? This helps a lot of sellers who don't have equity. And honestly, this is great with agents, right? Like I encourage agents, bring me deals that you can't sell, right? Because there might be a way we can get creative with this and work through that. And there's also ways you could still pay the agent, right? If it's going to take a little bit of cash out of pocket, but if you find the right deal, you could still get the agent paid. Or maybe it's just sometimes agents are like, you've probably experienced this, Nathan, we're like, I can't sell this house, I can't help you. If maybe this guy can help you because you just have no equity, right? So it helps that. On the documents on the title legal side. So again, purchase and sale document. These are pretty much, the exact same ones as the last one. Give you a couple quick case studies. So this was one that we are doing in Casper right here. So it's over on Stagecoach. So this guy, I'm assuming his loan, yes, I'm assuming the greatest thing, this guy, he's got a 2.5% loan at like 175,000. So what I'm doing is I'm actually giving him 7,500 down. This was actually how I was going to wrap it, so you can kind of ignore the 5,700, because I was actually going to wrap that to somebody else, because I was like, hey, you can make this return. But anyway, excuse me. So focus on this deal. His current monthly payment is $961. That's his mortgage, insurance, taxes, and insurance, right? But this house is gonna, it's actually like a 3-bed, 2-bath, and it's gonna rent for $1,700 to $1,800 a month. So we're gonna make that cash flow. We're gonna assume his loan, and I think we're giving this guy $7,500 down. So anyway, so just another great, and I've shared a couple other ones, but these ones are great, obviously, when you can find them. All right. Again, and to be clear, you guys probably already know this, but we're not going through the assumption process. I mean, actually, I never have gone through it. I mean, you can go through the assumption process, but A, it's so time consuming. B, they might disapprove it. And C, they might come back and say, yeah, we'll do it, but we'll do it at 7%, or they'll try to renew it, you know. But I've typically, from my experience and what I've heard, is it's a complete new underwriting. And it's like, it's all the things you don't want to do, right? You don't want to jump through all the bank hoops. So just a straight assumption. Yeah, you're living in the gray area, and there is some risk of the due on sale, but we feel pretty good about it. All right, last one, novations. I know Nathan's interested in this. We're working on some. So the way this works is it's an agreement with the seller to sell the house at a fixed purchase price. And then they give us the ability to market the property on the MLS. So we often utilize a local agent to help us with this. We can also do flat fee listings, but what I found, again, in these markets that I don't know everything about and that I want to create a longer partnership with, we'll actually let an agent list it for us. So we'll typically give a 60 to 90 day close. And what we do, the big important thing, is we get an attorney in fact signed. And this is what allows us to list the property and sign listing documents. This contract allows us to do a double close. So if I find my end buyer is a conventional buyer, we're just going to do a normal, I'm going to buy it and sell it on the same day. So then the novation really doesn't come into play. Where it comes into play is on the FHA buyers, right? Because if you're selling to an FHA buyer, you got to wait 90 days on a flip. If you guys haven't run into that, you will. So this gets you through that. So the way it works is we actually, and the reason it's called a novation is if we have an FHA buyer, we're still going to close on the same day. But the way we do that is I'll end up replacing on my purchase contract, I'm the buyer. But what I'll do is I'll replace my end buyer as the buyer in my contract, and that's where the novation name comes from, and they'll buy the house. And then I'll just be listed as it's like an assignment, right? And I'll have an assignment fee or a marketing fee, however you want to put it. The biggest thing is you could pay a little bit more on these deals. You could pay closer to market value versus a cash offer. The seller doesn't have to pay for repairs, and this is up to you, right? But our big pitch is say, hey, you're going to need to do repairs in today's market, right? They're going to ask for it. We work that into our numbers so we can pay for that. And then, like I said, it avoids the seasoning period with FHA buyers. That's one of the biggest kickers. And the paperwork's simple. It's just, again, ours is a regular purchase and sale agreement, and we just have a one-pager attorney in fact. So you could do a power of attorney, which is a little bit more involved, but we've simplified it to just a specific, hey, we're able to sign listing documents on your behalf. We're not we can't take over your estate or your will. We've done a ton. These are all the ones we've done. There was actually more than this, but we've done, and I was going to have Gene on the call today. He actually had something come up, but Gene's done the most with us. He's our most experienced agent. He's done 4 different ones that we've completed. Actually, we're in the middle of the 4th one, but those top 3 are all deals we've closed with them. Derek Collings, another guy who really helps us in Cheyenne and Laramie. Those first 2 are deals we've completed. Those second 2 are ones we're working on. In Thermopolis, we're actually working on closing this one on Circle. That's probably going to close in August. We just got that second one. That's actually in Grable at 465. That one's going to be a little tricky because that house is pretty rough. Chad, we work with Chad and Gillette, and this also gives you, to give Nathan a perspective, these are all the different agents we work with across the state. And actually, I invited a lot of them. The awesome thing, a year ago, we had Chad was here. We were working with Leslie at the time from Casper. We had Derek was there, our Cheyenne guy was there, and Gene was also there. So anyway, but smaller list this year. But again, that's the one we've done in Gillette. And then Lisa has been working with us locally. We've actually been doing quite a few in Casper. And then I put Nathan down here. So Nathan and I are working on one right now. We're actually got to get to the probate and some other hurdles first. But anyway, but it's been great, and I'm very thankful for guys like Nathan, because this helps me. We get a lot of leads, but like, it just really helps when I don't have to go. Well, like I can send somebody to the property who actually knows what's going on and can communicate with the seller. It works really good, and even obviously build rapport. And as I tell Nathan too, like there's obviously some of these deals that I'm going to send him out to that we're not going to be able to help him, and it's going to turn into a listing. And if it does, it's great. So anyway, yeah, that is all the case studies. So anyway, that's a QR code if you want to get on our buyers list. Also, private money lenders, and also if you're buying turnkey deals, right? Yeah, so questions?